The acrid scent of stale coffee and betrayal hung heavy in the air, a suffocating shroud over what was once a sisterly bond. I stood firm, my voice unwavering, refusing to weave a web of lies for Anya, my younger sister, to deceive her husband. She had practically begged me to expose her truth, a truth born of brazen indiscretion, and now their marriage, a fragile construct, was crumbling. Discord echoed through their home, a prelude to the inevitable divorce, and in the wreckage, Anya, with a venomous glare, laid all blame at my feet. It was a familiar dance, one we had perfected over years of strained affection, a choreography of deceit and denial that had always defined Anya. The weight of her accusations, though unjust, pressed down on me, a familiar burden I had carried since childhood. Yet, this time, something was different. This time, the truth felt like a liberation, a cleansing fire that, while painful, promised to burn away the years of unspoken resentment. Our relationship had never been particularly close, despite a mere 5-year age gap. From childhood, Anya was a master of manipulation, a weaver of intricate fictions, always cunning, always evasive. For me, honesty was a simpler path, a way to avoid the tangled knots of forgotten lies. Anya's friends, a revolving door of fleeting alliances, often departed with the bitter taste of betrayal. For people, it seemed, rarely appreciated being deceived. Yet Anya remained oblivious, seeing no fault in her elaborate charades. Our parents, gentle souls, instead of reprimanding her deceit, indulged her fantasies, proclaiming her a dreamer destined for a writer's career. A prophecy, I might add, that had yet to materialize. Married before Anya, despite her being the elder. My husband and I, driven by a shared vision of financial freedom, immediately secured a mortgage, determined to shed its burden as swiftly as possible. Anya, however, drifted through life, a butterfly flitting from one job to another, her restless nature and capricious temperament ensuring no long-term commitments. It was at her most recent and equally temporary workplace that she encountered him, her future husband. A man I would soon discover, whose life would become inextricably entangled in Anya's intricate tapestry of self-serving desires and reckless choices. Rising action. The early days of Anya's marriage were a whirlwind of swift decisions. A wedding, then a pregnancy, both unfolding with a speed that mirrored her impulsive nature. In due course, a baby girl arrived, a tiny beacon of innocence in Anya's chaotic world. Childless myself at the time, I eagerly embraced the role of doting aunt, readily accepting Anya's invitations to babysit. However, it soon became clear that Anya perceived my willingness as an open-ended contract for free childcare, a permanent fixture in her life. My niece, a sweet and curious child, became a pawn in Anya's self-serving game, her presence a convenient excuse for Anya's increasingly frequent disappearances. 6 months into her maternity leave, Anya's restlessness resurfaced. The quiet domesticity of motherhood, it seemed, was not for her. She began to demand my babysitting services with increasing regularity, utterly disregarding my own plans or prearranged schedules. A typical request would involve dropping off the baby on a Saturday morning, promising a couple of hours of freedom, only to reappear closer to midnight. These disappearing acts became particularly frequent when her husband was away on business trips, which, to my growing dismay, was often. Each time, confronted with my exasperation, Anya would spin an elaborate, fantastical tale of unforeseen circumstances preventing her return or even a simple phone call. She would then, with feigned sincerity, vow that such an oversight would never happen again. I, of course, no longer believed her. Neither did my husband, whose patience, unlike mine, was boundless, especially when it came to children. He adored our niece, and his genuine affection for her often softened the edges of my resentment towards Anya. Then came the escalation. Anya began leaving the baby for several days at a time. The first instance was a terrifying ordeal. My sister failed to return in the evening, her phone unreachable, leaving me frantic with worry. I imagined the worst, picturing her in some dire predicament. When she finally sauntered in the next morning, I was a breath away from strangling her. Cornered, Anya confessed, her voice laced with a strange mix of defiance and triumph that she had found a new man. My question, a simple query about the necessity of a new man when she already had a husband, was met with a dismissive shrug and the infuriating declaration that I simply wouldn't understand. I had no intention of understanding, frankly. I immediately informed her that I would not be complicit in her deceit, that her actions were, in my estimation, low and despicable. Anya merely laughed, a cold, dismissive sound, and retorted that I would understand when I grew up. The conversation, or so I thought, was closed. Plot twist 1, a month later, Anya arrived at my doorstep on a Sunday afternoon, niece in tow, an uncharacteristic air of sweetness about her. Nothing seemed amiss until a clumsy accident. A cup of coffee overturned on me, sent me scrambling to change. When I returned, Anya was gone. Vanished. She had simply abandoned her child with me, leaving behind a note that read, "I need a break. Be back soon." My anger was a raging inferno, but beneath it, a flicker of hope persisted that she would return by evening. She didn't. Monday dawned, forcing me to fabricate a story for my boss about a sudden illness, a lie that gnawed at my conscience and my paycheck. Still, Anya remained unreachable. By now, I was a bundle of frayed nerves, my husband even buying me sedatives to calm my escalating anxiety. It was in this state of near collapse that my sister's husband called. The dam broke. I unleashed a torrent of truth, detailing Anya's philandering, her repeated abandonment of their child, and the existence of her new lover. He listened in stunned silence, promising to come over that evening and asking me to call if Anya made contact. She didn't. True to his word, he arrived that evening, collected his daughter, offered a quiet apology for the inconvenience, and left. I sent Anya a terse text message outlining the unfolding disaster. Plot twist 2. Anya's call came at 3 a.m, a furious, incoherent scream. She accused me of betrayal, of violating the sacred bond of sisterhood, of single-handedly demolishing her family. "But you have a new man," I retorted, my voice trembling with a mixture of exhaustion and righteous indignation. "So you'll stay with him? What's the problem?" Her response was a chilling revelation, a glimpse into the depths of her self-serving pragmatism. "Are you completely stupid? He has nothing, no home, no money. Where would he take me?" I hung up, blocking her number without another word. Anya was right. I truly couldn't understand her. The man she had been seeing was merely a temporary diversion, a means to an end, not a replacement for the stability her husband provided. Her outrage wasn't about love or family, but about the disruption of her carefully constructed facade, a facade I had inadvertently shattered. This wasn't about her husband's feelings, but about her own comfort and convenience. The depth of her selfishness was truly staggering. Climax. Weeks blurred into a tense, suffocating silence. Anya's husband, Mark, had initiated divorce proceedings, his resolve hardened by my revelations. He sought full custody of their daughter, a move that sent Anya spiraling into a frenzy of victimhood. She painted me as the villain, a treacherous sister who had slandered her name and destroyed her family. Our parents, caught in the crossfire, wavered between disbelief and a desperate desire for peace, their gentle natures ill-equipped to navigate the storm Anya had unleashed. I, however, felt a strange sense of liberation. The truth, raw and ugly, was finally out, and with it, the suffocating weight of Anya's secrets had lifted from my shoulders. Yet a gnawing unease persisted. The final confrontation was inevitable, a storm gathering on the horizon, and I knew with a chilling certainty that it would be a battle for the very soul of our family. It arrived on a Tuesday, a summons to a family meeting at our parents' house. The air in the living room was thick with unspoken accusations, a silent battle waged before the first word was uttered. Anya was already there, perched on the edge of the sofa, her eyes red-rimmed but her posture rigid with defiance. Mark sat opposite her, his face a mask of weary determination. Our parents, looking older than their years, occupied the armchairs, their usual warmth replaced by a palpable tension. Anya launched into her familiar narrative, a tearful recounting of my supposed betrayal, her voice rising in a crescendo of self-pity. She spoke of sisterly bonds, of loyalty, of the sacred trust I had supposedly violated. She omitted, of course, any mention of her own transgressions, her infidelity, her abandonment of her child. Mark, his patience worn thin, interrupted her, his voice calm but firm. He laid out the facts, the dates, the undeniable evidence of her deceit. Anya's face contorted, her carefully constructed facade cracking under the weight of his words. Then, the game-changing revelation. Mark, his gaze fixed on Anya, spoke of a hidden bank account, a substantial sum of money that had mysteriously vanished. Anya blanched, her eyes darting nervously. It was a detail I hadn't known, a new layer to her deception. Mark explained that he had been saving for their daughter's future, a college fund, a nest egg. The money was gone, transferred to an unknown account shortly after Anya's new man had entered the picture. The implication hung heavy in the air. Anya hadn't just been unfaithful, she had been systematically draining their joint savings, preparing for a life with her new lover. Our parents gasped, their faces a mixture of shock and dawning horror. Anya, cornered, lashed out, her voice a shrill scream. She accused Mark of fabricating lies, of trying to ruin her. But her protests rang hollow, devoid of conviction. The emotional peak arrived when Mark, his voice thick with emotion, pulled out a small, worn photo album. It was filled with pictures of Anya and their daughter, moments of joy and tenderness. He spoke of his dreams for their family, of the life he had envisioned. His voice broke as he recounted the pain of discovering Anya's betrayal, not just of him, but of their daughter. He spoke of the nights he had spent alone, worrying about his child, while Anya was off with another man. The raw vulnerability in his voice was a stark contrast to Anya's histrionics. It was a plea not for reconciliation, but for understanding, for justice. Anya, for the first time, seemed to shrink, her defiance momentarily replaced by a flicker of shame. But it was fleeting. Her self-preservation instincts kicked in, and she launched into a furious counterattack, accusing Mark of being a controlling, unloving husband, of driving her into the arms of another. The major confrontation escalated. Anya, desperate, turned her fury on me. She accused me of jealousy, of always wanting what she had, of sabotaging her happiness. Her words were venomous, designed to wound, to deflect. But I stood my ground, my gaze steady. Anya, I said, my voice calm, I told you I wouldn't cover for you. You chose this path. You chose to lie, to cheat, to abandon your child. This isn't about me. This is about your choices. My words, simple and direct, seemed to pierce through her rage. She faltered, her eyes losing their fire. It was a moment of character transformation, not for Anya, but for me. I had always been the quiet, accommodating sister, the one who tried to keep the peace, but no more. I had found my voice, my strength, and I would not be silenced. The confrontation ended not with a bang, but with a whimper. Anya, defeated, stormed out, leaving behind a stunned silence. Mark, his face etched with pain, thanked me, a silent acknowledgement of the heavy burden I had carried. Our parents, their faces pale, looked at me with a new understanding, a silent apology for their past indulgence of Anya's deceit. The family, as we knew it, was irrevocably broken, but in its shattering, a new, albeit painful, truth had emerged. Resolution. The aftermath was a slow, painful unraveling, a gradual descent into a new, fractured reality. Mark, true to his word, proceeded with the divorce, his resolve steeled by the raw pain of Anya's betrayal. He fought for and won full custody of their daughter, Lily. a decision the court readily supported given the overwhelming evidence of Anya's neglect and infidelity. Anya, stripped of her carefully constructed life, her comfortable home, and her primary source of financial security, found herself adrift in a sea of her own making. She moved in with a succession of friends, her narrative of victimhood shifting with each sympathetic ear, always portraying herself as the wronged party, the tragic heroine in a drama of my malicious design. She wailed about how I had slandered her, undermined her, and ultimately destroyed her family. The irony, a bitter pill to swallow, was not lost on me. She conveniently omitted her own actions, the infidelity, the financial deception, the abandonment of her child. These, in her twisted reality, were mere trifles, insignificant details in the grand tragedy of her life. A life she now painted as a masterpiece of suffering. My parents, initially shocked and saddened by the implosion of their daughter's marriage, slowly began to see the truth. The constant drama, Anya's refusal to take responsibility for her actions, and the undeniable evidence presented in court eventually chipped away at their long-held illusions. They started to visit Mark and their granddaughter more frequently, offering support and solace, their hearts aching for the innocent child caught in the crossfire. Their relationship with Anya became strained, a fragile thread stretched taut by years of her deceit, a thread that now threatened to snap. For me, the growth was profound, a painful but necessary metamorphosis. I had shed the skin of the accommodating sister, the silent enabler who had, for too long, prioritized a fragile peace over the hard, uncomfortable truth. I had learned the painful lesson that sometimes truth, however harsh, is the only path to genuine peace, the only way to break free from the suffocating grip of a toxic relationship. My relationship with Mark and my niece, Lily, deepened, forged in the crucible of shared adversity. I became a constant, reliable presence in Lily's life, a stark contrast to her mother's erratic, fleeting appearances, a source of stability in a world that had been turned upside down. The divorce was finalized, a quiet, somber affair that marked the official end of a chapter. Anya, left with nothing but her bitterness and a dwindling circle of friends, continued to blame me. She saw herself as a martyr, her suffering a direct consequence of my actions, a narrative that allowed her to avoid the painful process of self-reflection. But her accuse,